Hello again, YouTube. Josiah or Disciple here, back for another For the King 2 guide. This time we're going to be doing a bit more of an intermediate guide. I was attempting to make just a guide that was a bit more of the intermediate level, but I realized there's just so many things to cover. There's so many things I get asked about when I play this game, or when people are watching me stream it, that like they didn't realize worked that way or they want clarity on. And I was just like, I think we're gonna have to break this up. So this is a bit more of an intermediate guide, but it's gonna focus on loadouts, party setup, and some combat tips and tricks. And this is coming from the perspective of someone who's cleared several stages on Master. We'll have all up by the time you watch this video. I'll probably have beaten all the stages of Master on this game, because when you employ a lot of these strategies, it becomes a lot easier. So let's first off and go, just quickly mention, if you don't have all this stuff unlocked, the first priority you should be doing is just doing the game on Journeyman or on Easy or whatever. Give yourself extra lives and get the unlocks, get the lore, because this gives you many more options, even if it's not necessarily the best stuff, because I do think some of the best characters are the base for the Scholar and the Blacksmith especially are probably the best tank and the best damage dealer in the game are the two basic characters. But it'll give you more options just for you to try different strategies, to employ different things, and to just learn what you like and would enjoy playing more, and then in turn would eventually get better at. So let's go through this. All right, so I'm gonna go through real quick loadouts. So we'll just go chapter 2. We'll put it on master, and I'll give you some basics of what I would do. The first thing you want to think of is the damage spread. You typically want two characters that are going to be accurate with magic damage, which is almost always exclusively going to be brains. Right here, this stat here, intelligence or brains. This is what is going to determine the majority of the magic weapons in the game's damage. There are a very few other weapons that based off of like luck. There's a hammer that's magic based off of luck. There's a few weapons that do magic damage based on awareness, but those are not going to come up often. So typically the spread that I would do is two people that are good with intelligence, and I can just go ahead and open them all at once, right? So like the friar is good at intelligence, the scholar is the best at intelligence, and he also has two of the best abilities. The shepherd is solid at intelligence, although I think this is at current state one of the weakest classes in the game. I did hear that there was a buff coming to this, so I don't know if it's been done yet. And then the Alchemist is a really, really good, and nearly does rival the Scholar in damage, but he's a little less consistent than the Scholar, because Scholar is just so consistent, being able to constantly refocus, pump out high accuracy, AoE blasts, constantly getting perfect rolls because of the refocus ability, just letting him guarantee roll after roll after roll is so good. But the Alchemist making bombs is a lot of damage. The last character that has high int is going to be actually the Hobo. The Hobo has 70 in all stats. It's a secret character. You unlock her. I'll make more guides on how to unlock all the characters. It's not going to be in this one, but the Hobo is 70 in every stat, so you could stack her int pretty high. Solid character. I personally think the Hobo is pretty good. Kind of random, not as reliable. So let's just quickly mention, right? So you want a spread, typically two characters that do int damage, so like I mentioned them, and then you're gonna want two tanks. And actually, an interesting thing is the friar, if you look at his vitality and his int, it can be a tank and a magic damage dealer. Great class with this stat spread. I guess the Hobo can also do it, but a great class, and his ability to consume alcohol and get the benefits without any of the downsides, as well as find alcohol where he can just get alcohol on random overworld or dungeon tiles. Very, very, very powerful. He is top tier. I would say the other character that's top tier for damage dealing is the Scholar, and I do think a little lower than both of them. Personally, I would rank the Alchemist. I also have to give a shout out to the Herbalist. Part of me wants to put her top tier as well, with this party heal ability being it is very, very good. Especially if you give her extra actions. But her abilities aren't offensively focused. So if you're going to bring her as a healer and a magic damage dealer, you probably need to bring like the Scholar or the Alchemist. I don't know if she would work super well with the Friar. I mean, she could. You could have a tank that you could constantly be topping up. But they both kind of fill similar roles, actually, because he can heal nearby teammates as well. So I wouldn't bring them together. Well, yeah, 2 magic users. So I would probably do something like this, right? Scholar, Friar, and then you want a frontline tank. The best at this in the game is going to be the Blacksmith. She has Steadfast, which can just randomly negate damage when she's using a shield, and she has Mend, chance to save breakable weapons from being destroyed. She's probably number 1. Number 2 is actually probably the Friar. And then beyond that, I do like the Stable Hand, although his vitality is not that high. I do like the Stable Hand. He's a great damage dealer and a great frontliner. Not as tanky as the others. I would say S tier is going to be Friar and Blacksmith are the S tier tanks. S tier damage dealers, personally, my own rating would be the Scholar. I think is he the standalone S tier damage dealer? I think I would have to say he is. I think the Scholar, there have been many campaigns where I've played through on high difficulty on Master, and at the end of the campaign, the Scholar has done double everyone else's damage. Like, he's that good. I think he's the S tier damage dealer. I think there's a lot of A tier ones, though. I do think the Stable Hand is A tier. I think the Alchemist is A tier. I don't think the Farmer is very good, personally. I think the Alchemist is A tier, definitely solid. I don't think the Woodcutter is very good, because he doesn't want to use a shield, and you don't really want a frontliner who doesn't use a shield. It can work. It can work, especially if your backliner isn't super swishy, but I'm not super high in the Woodcutter. I'd say he's like a B tier character. Stable Hand, I would say, is A tier. He's mostly a damage dealer, though not a tank. Shepherd is like a C tier character currently. She's probably the worst. One of the worst, for sure. Pathfinder is, I think, an S tier character, but mostly because of Scout and Survey, because of her abilities, not because of her stats or her combat prowess. But these are just such strong abilities. Survey especially is just... I can't tell you the amount of times I'm playing Master Mode and the Pathfinder finds me a Sanctum. And that Sanctum, like, saves my run by having that extra life. Or she finds me an extra life event. I think Pathfinder is S tier, especially on Master Mode, where time versus, like, how much you can get done in that time, how much you want to fight, how much you want to risk is such a balancing act. I do think she's S tier, but not for damage and not for tankiness. Just for what she enables. Hunter, I think Hunter should probably be an A tier character. I don't play it very much. I think, reading his abilities, he's got good stuff. He probably should be A tier. Hobo is very interesting. It really depends on how lucky you get, right? It really depends. Hobo really depends on how lucky you get. I think Hobo's probably an A tier character, though. Stats like this and an ability like the Hobo has, just a chance to gain random items, probably an A tier character. Could be S tier if you're super lucky, Herbalist has got to be... She's got to at least be A tier. I think you can make an argument for her being S tier, but she's a great healer, great damage dealer, just all around solid character. Define herb ability is super powerful. She probably should be S tier. I just don't use her as much. Farmer, C tier. Like, he's down there with the Shepherd, and I do think the Woodcutter's probably B tier. I don't think he's very good. He's fun, but I don't think he's very good. Okay, so the archetypes, right? So one thing I want to mention briefly for this guy is that your stat, like this intelligence, is your accuracy with your weapon. So it affects the interaction with puzzles that are int based. It would be 78% if you have 78 to roll a success. And it also affects your accuracy per roll in combat. So the higher you can stack this up to 95, that is the cap, the more accurate you are. When you get to like 90s, you really notice your characters almost never miss. It's such a big difference. You gotta hit that critical mass. And then let's go ahead and just do a sample team here, right? Something I would run. I'll switch off the Scholar. I use him often. We'll do Alchemist as a damage dealer. We'll do Friar as a tank. I'll even mix it up. We'll do Hobo as a tank, and then we'll do another damage dealer, or let's do the Hunter. I don't play him enough either. So we would do something like this. This would be a great party for Master. I would run this on Master. I do think, there's better options for the Hobo and potentially the Hunter. I think this is a solid party. Got great spreads of damage. Hobo's got all around great stats. The Hunter is very nimble and reliable to send out and scout. I do think that the Pathfinder is better than the Hunter at doing that, but And let's do some quick examples, right? So this guy, I would probably be giving like Deep Thinker to have that because he's going to be a more consistent damage dealer. He has, I mean, he is probably tied an int with the Friar, but I would more consistently be using him to do damage because that's like what he's focused on. Whereas the Friar might be taunting, he might be getting less of the weapons but more of the armor. So we would give him Deep Thinker to make his stuff more accurate. We'd probably throw something like Spirit Taffy on him for that lasting power. There's one thing I want to mention in these loadouts. The taffies and candies are great because they give you power early. 1 damage when you do 5 is 20% more, but late game as you start stacking these, that effect is permanent and very lasting and very noticeable as you start stacking. So these are one thing I recommend early for Master if you want early power, and then like I would give him like the gold. The Hobo, I mean, you gotta go Talented, right? Or Gifted on the Hobo. She has 73 in every stat now. Very, very strong. She is going to probably usually use a physical weapon, so we could give her the Black Candy. We also could give her the Salted Drawbreaker for extra tankiness, give her lockpicks. I'm going to give the Friar a Honeyed Sponge for extra resistance tanking. I'm going to give him a Golden Root, just to refill focus. You know, Taunt is now a secondary action as of this patch, so I would give him Nimble maybe for an extra action so he can taunt more easily. This guy is great with Tactician, Navigator, Eager, it's all solid. What I think is the best out of these is really up for debate. They're all decent. None of them are insane. I would probably go Tactician, just again for that early damage. I really like the candies. If I wasn't going candies, some other notable mentions would be like the Tinder Pouch. The Cracked Spyglass is hugely, hugely useful early game. I'm actually going to take that, and then we'll go up again. Okay, so this is Chapter 2 Master. I'm not going to do a whole playthrough. I'm just going to, again, keep this to a hopefully relatively short guide. So combat strats, I want to talk about a few things. One thing I want to mention, we'll get into a battle here in just a second. The back row, so in combat, there's the front row and the back row. The back row gives +5 to evasion. Any character standing in the back row, including enemies, enemies' evasion isn't visible for some reason. I don't know why that's the way the game is done. They will have extra chance to evade all damage, 5% baseline on top of whatever else they have. I'll go ahead and do this quest. Focusing hat. This is a super, super, super powerful hat. So I wanted to mention, like, these quests, what you typically want to do is party XP, unless the item is, like, something you're going to use for a long time until the late game. And this is definitely one I would personally use until late game. One of the most powerful abilities that makes the Scholar so good is refocus, and that's what that hat has. So I want to go into combat real quick. This is not wise. He's pretty much going to be alone here. He gets help. Okay. I'll just, again, show the back row. So yeah, the back row, we both are in the back row, as you notice. We got 5 evasion on the Alchemist. We step forward. It's gone. It's 0 now. Same thing for the enemies. And one thing I want to mention to keep in mind, too, as you play this game, sticking together lets you block for your allies if you have a shield. Now, some shields are, I think all shields and some armors give you the ability called Guard, which Guard lets you block for the person behind you, so the enemies cannot target that tile and that individual. Same thing with enemies. Enemies will also have Guard. So it's something to keep in mind. Very powerful strat. Put a tank in front of a damage dealer, let the damage dealer do their thing, and the tank can taunt as a secondary action and then even attack after. So it's very, very good. Another thing is that we have a lot of characters in this party with support range, which means that they get to join the fight from further away, something to keep in mind. Also works for enemies. Some enemies have support range, so if you start a fight, they're going to join from further away. We might get wiped by crows, it's okay. I'm just doing a basic tutorial, like showcase type deal. Okay, let's see. Oh, right, and one thing I want to mention about is a very efficient thing to do is to stack a stat on one individual. To stack a stat. Oh, that's unfortunate. So if you have a dedicated damage dealer, kind of like I was mentioning this Alchemist would be for me, you would give him pretty much all the Spirit Taffies, the damage up for... I need this guy to kind of get behind this other guy. Let's see if we can maybe get called shot. No. You probably stack them because it's more effective, especially if this damage dealer has AoE. It's way more effective to stack the damage on one individual rather than spread it out. It does, obviously spreading it out, if you don't have a lot of AoE, can be good because then more people can more reliably hit and do things. Okay, nice. He doesn't knock the one shot. And the same can be said with armor and resistance. If you have a character that has a shield, typically they're going to have an ability called Taunt, which forces enemies to attack that target. Now, be mindful, like if you're taunting against a bunch of magic enemies and then you only have armor, it's not going to be a good time. But it's really efficient to stack defensive stats on one unit, especially if you know they're going to be taunting and absorbing a lot of the damage for you. It just makes that effectiveness go way through the roof. Same thing with evasion. It stacks up to 100. It's maybe one of the most broken abilities in the game when you get it stacked all the way. Super, super good stuff. Evasion tanks actually are the most powerful kind of tank. Late game, if you can get it to like 80, 90 evasion, which can happen, you can get just a solid baseline of like 80 chance to evade all damage. It's so powerful, especially if they have a mix of good health and that evasion and maybe a little armor and resistance. They just become so hard to kill. It can be kind of crazy. I've had evade tanks just like solo whole fights when they went in that they definitely should not have won. Let's see, what's next on the list here? Yeah, so I mentioned grouping up lets you hide behind a shield, but again, enemies have AoE, so be mindful of that. You'll learn as you play, like what enemies have AoE and what don't. Ooh. I also mentioned that, like int is the accuracy for an int weapon. It doesn't affect damage or anything. There is one special case, though. Vitality affects your max life. Even just upping it by 1 while you're already, out and about fighting will increase your current max HP, so that if you get a heal, it would up that. And it is the accuracy for vitality weapons. Vitality weapons aren't that common, but they do exist, and there is a very, very good build. Stacking vitality super high. I actually recently did that with my friend in Master. We won that run. He had 140 max HP, and then he had 95 accuracy with his vitality weapon. It was so powerful. Just a special mention there. Another thing I want to mention, hopefully we'll find a sanctum soon so I can show you what I'm talking about. Let's go for this. You can use, by the way, you can right click and use focus to get an extra movement on the world map. Sanctums, I mentioned this briefly in the basics video. Wow, that was a lot of items. They give you, that character effectively gets an extra life, but they also give you stats. And one thing to be mindful of, there is this balancing act, and there's this decision to be made that can be quite difficult, is who gets what sanctum. Now, if you're a damage dealer, it's pretty obvious you might want to give them the crit damage sanctum. But what about like an HP sanctum? Do you want to stack it on a tank? There's an alluring pool. Do you want to stack it on the tank? This guy has an extra fine distance, as you can see. He's revealing so many extra tiles. Or do you want to give it to your damage dealer so they're a little less squishy? It is really a balancing act, and it kind of depends from situation to situation. But again, I usually err on the side of stack the stats on the people who are going to most effectively use them. It can be hard to know that if you haven't played a lot, but you'll learn in time. But yeah, I would typically give damage dealers crit sanctums, tanks like resistance sanctums, and I would give an evasion tank, or they don't usually start as a tank. I would give an evasion character an evade sanctum. I would give a life sanctum to a tank. I would give a curse and poison immunity sanctum to someone who's going to taunt like a tank, stuff like that. One thing I want to mention, like I briefly touched on this already, but that hat we found, or the hat we're doing the quest for, that focusing hat and the scholar makes the rolls so efficient. Again, I want to briefly just touch on this one more time. Adding a focus to a roll guarantees that one roll, but also ups the accuracy of all subsequent rolls. So if you have a weapon that has to roll 5 times, which, I mean, there are many of these. If you have a weapon that has to roll 5 times to hit, and you put one focus in, that first roll is guaranteed, and those 4 subsequent rolls are all more accurate. Very powerful thing. That's, again, why I think the Scholar is among the best characters in the game, 100%. And refocus can rarely be found on hats, like the one we are doing the quest currently to get, and the Scholar has it. I want to mention something too. This is something that me and my friend have recently discussed. So you see this pointy stick here the hobo has? This has 1 roll. So if you think about it, a lot of people are like, oh, that's just better. I have to roll less rolls to get my max damage. That is true. You have to only roll one roll, and you can even guarantee it with focus. You can guarantee it'll do its max damage and hit with just one singular focus. It is very, very good. Hobo is full health. I'll go ahead and do this fight while I talk. So you can guarantee that roll, but the thing is, the more rolls you have, especially if you have a high amount of that stat, it normalizes. It averages out the chance that you get what you want. I'm trying to think of a way to explain this. If you have 5 rolls at 75%, you're very likely not to miss them all, right? But if you have 1 roll at 75% and you miss it, you do most often 0 damage. So if you're unlucky and you just have 1 roll, it's worse. But if your weapon has an effect you really care about, let's say like this pointy stick here, it ignores armor. So I'm going to say I was really counting on that. If I had to roll 5 times to ignore armor, that would not happen very often. But on a 1-roll weapon, it happens all the time because I just have to literally get that average luck for that 1 roll. So yeah, there's advantages and disadvantages to things having more and less rolls. Generally speaking, the more rolls it has, the less likely you are to be perfect. So you can't reliably depend on whatever ability that weapon might have. Oh, we actually found a dungeon. So that's a level 1 dungeon you could do. Perilous Descent into the Underworld. Dungeons will pull in your whole party no matter where they are too. Just a quick tip there. Wow, so 12 evasion armor already. Excuse me. Just a few more things to mention in this video and we'll wrap it up. It's already getting a bit long. I want to mention too, we touched on this earlier. This probably should have been in that portion of the video. We touched on this briefly earlier. The positioning of enemies matters just as much as the positioning of your own team. Now, you know that you can obviously block for your allies now. I explained that if you have a shield or specific armors. You can block for your allies and make them harder to hit. Make them effectively safer behind you. But one thing you need to keep in mind for enemies as well... Oh my gosh, I lost the tutor pouch. Is if you have AoE especially, you need to be mindful of who you're focusing. If you have an ability that has Splash, for example, it's going to hit that specific enemy and the tiles around them. Well, you don't want to kill the enemy in the middle of several other enemies. Let me see if I can find a fight where this would kind of... Let me show you this, right? Let me explain this a bit more in depth. So, enemy position matters just as much, if not more, sometimes. And I have a perfect example here, actually, because this guy made a bomb. So this guy has this smoke bomb right here, look. And if you click shift, you see it says splash. So I'm going to target a tile, right? And targeting this tile hits all 4 of these tiles. Now, if other people were going before this alchemist, let's say he wasn't alone, just for the, this is obviously just for the video. Let's say he wasn't alone. If someone else was going first, and this young witch is at 1 HP, well, killing her would mean that I can no longer target this tile. So that would mean that I would have to instead throw a bomb like that. And that's hitting, obviously, especially if she's dead, that's only hitting 2. So that's something to be mindful of as you play through combat. Enemy positioning is something you need to plan out just as much as your own. Sometimes it shapes the combat even more. And I believe that's it. If we have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Again, I stream this video on this video game on Twitch. If you guys want to follow, I'll have the links down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you have more interest in watching more guides to come. I'm going to have specific strategies and builds. And let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'll probably answer within 30 minutes. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this was helpful. God bless, guys. God loves y'all. Take care. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed and will continue to follow along, join the community, subscribe, and be part of the future videos. I just wanted to quickly share where I find contentment, where I find joy, where I find hope in these crazy times we live in, so much going on in the world, so much bad news, and so many just things to bring you down. And I just wanted to share that I'm a Christian and I fully believe, as silly as it may sound to some people, that there is a God that made us all with purpose. And although we all chose to go our own way, myself included, and to just reject this God, reject this creator, that broke his heart, that he didn't want us to be separated, and that he sent Jesus to die for our sins and to make us new, to make a way for us to be reconciled as a payment for our sin, as a payment for the punishment that we deserve, that Jesus died. And now we can be reconciled to God. And not only can we be made right with God and have the promise of heaven. But this life is also filled with purpose as we're able to know him and find joy and contentment through the relationship with God, that we can invite others and we can make a lasting eternal impact on others by sharing this truth and inviting them to know him. And I would just love to tell you guys more if you have any questions, but I just want you to know that God loves you whoever you are, whatever you've done. Nothing has disqualified you from his love, that he genuinely cares for you more than you would ever know. And I've experienced that love, and it is just it's done so much for me in my life, and I want that to happen for you guys. So thank you guys so much. Let me know if you have any questions. I hope you guys are here and going to join the community no matter what you think or who you are or what you believe, guys. God loves you. I love you. God bless, guys.